Haisai, Kobashigawa Shid Yaibing, Chaganju Yaibing na. Welcome everyone, I'm your host Sid. I hope you're doing well and staying safe during these difficult times. First, I ask that you hit that subscribe button and become part of this group. That will help the YouTube algorithms to suggest this channel to others interested in Uchunaguchi and grow the group. But more importantly, it will ensure that every time a video is released, you will be notified. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to hit that subscribe button. Today's topic is Uchunaguchi sounds or alphabets. In order to speak Uchunaguchi, it is important to learn all the basic sounds for the language. First, let me say that if you have some knowledge of Japanese, it will help, but you can still learn Uchunaguchi without this knowledge. If you research Uchinaguchi, you'll read that it is what is called a sanboing language, or a three-vowel language. We will see why it's called a three-vowel language, but if you ask me how many vowel sounds there are in Uchinaguchi, my answer will be 5, and it's 10 if you include the long vowel sounds. Yes, linguists can't count. There are 5 short vowel sounds pronounced as follows: A, E, U, E, and O. However, A and O are rare in native Uchinaguchi, so this is why it's called a three-vowel language. There are 5 long vowel sounds pronounced as follows: A, E, U, E, O. There are 20 consonant sounds in Uchinaguchi. I won't pronounce these consonant sounds since it is exactly the same as how you would pronounce it in English. All the Japanese hiragana sounds except tsu are contained in Uchinaguchi, so Japanese sounds are a subset of Uchinaguchi. Some points to remember as we learn about Uchinaguchi sounds. Sometimes the D and R sounds may be interchangeable, as in the number 6, ruku or duku, or the phrase let's go, dika or dika. The J and Z sounds are sometimes interchangeable, as in the word seat, za or ja, and the word for asset, J-sang or zay-sang. The F and H sounds are sometimes interchangeable, as in the word leg, fisa or hisa, or the word fast, feiku or heiku. In previous times, the G sound was pronounced as a J, such as higa, which was pronounced bija. These facts are good to know as you encounter Uchinaguchi dialects. I mentioned that Uchinaguchi is inclusive of all the Japanese hiragana sounds except tsu. Uchinaguchi also has many sounds not contained in Japanese. The following are these sounds: we, we, u, yi, ye, ti, tu, di, du, qua, qui, que, gua, gui, gue, fa, fi, fe, she, che, je. Another difference between Uchinaguchi and Japanese is that Uchinaguchi has glottal stops or glottal catch sounds. I won't pretend I can pronounce the glottal sounds, but I will attempt to. Just pretend that I'm doing it correctly. In text, you'll see the glottal sound written as a question mark or apostrophe mark. In hiragana, you will see a small tsu for the glottal sound. In Uchinaguchi, the 7 glottal sounds are ya, you, yo, wa, we, we, There are corresponding non-glottal sounds for these 7 sounds, so you should be aware of it. For example, the glottal sounding word ya means you, but the non-glottal sounding word ya means house. Another example is the glottal sounding word wa means pig, but the non-glottal sounding word wa means I or me. Usually listeners will be able to determine what you mean by the context of the word, but we should attempt to make the correct glottal sounds. There is no Uchinaguchi alphabet chart like in Japanese, but here's a table that I created to show the existing sounds in the language. This would be considered the Romaji writing for each sound. The sounds not present in Japanese are highlighted in blue. Next, this is the same chart written in hiragana. You are not expected to remember these characters, but I'm just showing it to you so that you know it exists. The non-Japanese hiragana characters are called Shin Okinawa Moji, or New Okinawa characters, highlighted in blue. Let's take a look at the New Okinawa system characters. I thought this would be of interest to those of you that know Japanese hiragana and were curious about the Uchinaguchi characters. I'll cover these characters very quickly. Kwa is a ku written with a small wa on the bottom. Kui is ku with a small e on the bottom. Kwe is a ku with a small a on the bottom. Gua is a gu with a small wa on the bottom. Gui is a gu with a small e on the bottom. Gwe is a gu with a small a on the bottom. T is a te with a small e on the bottom. Tu is a to with a small u on the bottom. D is a de with a small e on the bottom. Du is a do with a small u on the bottom. Fa is a fu with a small wa on the side. Fi is a fu with a small e on the side. Fe is a fu with a small a on the side. We is actually a hiragana character that existed long ago but got substituted by the hiragana e. Wu is a wo with a small u on the bottom. We is actually a hiragana character that also existed long ago but got substituted with the hiragana character a. Yi is a e with a tenteng on the top. Ye is a with tenteng on the top. The glottal wa is a character created from the hiragana wa by making it more curvy. The glottal we is the non-glottal we with a dash on the top. The glottal we is the non-glottal we with a dash on the top. The glottal ya is the non-glottal ya with an extra line on the left. The glottal u is a non-glottal u with an extra line on the left. The glottal yo is a non-glottal yo with an extra line on the left. The glottal is a non-glottal with a dash on the tail. So these are the new Okinawa characters. That being said, there is no standardized way to write hiragana for Uchinaguchi. There are actually 4 competing systems: the conventional system, the council system, the Ryukyu University system, and the new Okinawa Moji system. The new Okinawa Moji system is gaining popularity, but most people currently use the conventional system. I will discuss the conventional system in video 6 when we talk about this channel's standards. All these sounds are pronounceable in English, so English speakers should have minimal problems pronouncing Uchinaguchi sounds. The only exception are the glottal sounds, which will take some effort to learn. Let's move on to the second topic. There are some correspondence between Japanese and Uchinaguchi sounds. This is not a general rule, but an occasional rule that may help you guess the meaning of Uchinaguchi words if you have some knowledge of Japanese. So remember, sometimes these rules apply and sometimes they do not. This table shows the sound correspondence between Japanese and Uchinaguchi. The Japanese A sound corresponds to the Uchinaguchi E sound. An example is the word rain, which is ame in Japanese is ami in Uchunaguchi. The Japanese O sound corresponds to the Uchinaguchi U sound. For example, the word sound, which is oto in Japanese, is utu in Uchinaguchi. Japanese I and ae corresponds to Uchinaguchi e. An example is the word carpenter, which is daiku in Japanese, is deiku in Uchinaguchi. The word front, which is mae in Japanese, is me in Uchinaguchi. Japanese ao and o corresponds to the Uchinaguchi o. An example is the word bai, which is kao in Japanese, is koing in Uchinaguchi. The word sibling, which is kyodai in Japanese, is chodei in Uchinaguchi. Japanese ui, e, oi, oe corresponds to the Uchinaguchi i. An example is the word incident, which is tsuide in Japanese, is chidi in Uchinaguchi. The word polite, which is teine in Japanese, is tini in Uchinaguchi. The word overtake, which is oitsuku in Japanese, is wichichun in Uchinaguchi. The word voice, which is koe in Japanese, is kui in Uchinaguchi. Japanese o and o corresponds to the Uchinaguchi u. An example is the word pass, which is toru in Japanese, is tuing in Uchinaguchi. The word yesterday, which is kino in Japanese, is chinu in Uchinaguchi. Japanese awa corresponds to the Uchinaguchi a. An example is the word river, which is kawa in Japanese, is ka in Uchinaguchi. Japanese D corresponds to an Uchinaguchi E. An example is the word bird, which is tori in Japanese, is tui in Uchinaguchi. Japanese ki and tsu corresponds to the Uchinaguchi chi. An example is the word yesterday, which is kino in Japanese, is chinu in Uchinaguchi. The word pine, which is matsu in Japanese, is machi in Uchinaguchi. Japanese gi corresponds to a Uchinaguchi ji. An example is the word obligation, which is giri in Japanese, is jiri in Uchinaguchi. Japanese ik vowel and it vowel corresponds to Uchinaguchi ich vowel. An example is the word favor, which is hiki in Japanese, is hichi in Uchinaguchi. The word cousin, which is itoko in Japanese, is ichiku in Uchinaguchi. Japanese ig vowel and id vowel corresponds to Uchinaguchi ij vowel. An example is the island name Ishigaki in Japanese, is Ishijaki in Uchinaguchi. The word left, which is hidari in Japanese, is hijai in Uchinaguchi. Japanese kur corresponds to Uchinaguchi kkw. An example is the word pillow, which is makura in Japanese, is makwa in Uchinaguchi. Japanese mi, mu, ni, nu corresponds to an Uchinaguchi un. An example is the word soybean paste, which is miso in Japanese, is unsu in Uchinaguchi. The word breast, which is mune in Japanese, is unni in Uchinaguchi. The word bitter, which is nigai in Japanese, is inja-san in Uchinaguchi. The word dog, which is inu in Japanese, is in Uchinaguchi. Japanese su corresponds to Uchinaguchi shi. An example is the word sand, which is suna in Japanese, is shina in Uchinaguchi. Japanese vowel corresponds to Uchinaguchi NM vowel. An example is the word horse, which is uma in Japanese, is uma in Uchinaguchi. This is a long list of sound correspondences, so it would be difficult to remember without knowledge of more Uchinaguchi vocabulary. But slowly, as you learn Uchinaguchi words, you will naturally start to see these rules. Let's do one last example using multiple sound correspondences for a mini review. Awa corresponds to a. Ki corresponds to chi. And o corresponds to u. Now, if we mix the order around, Okinawa is Uchina. I hope that brought a smile to your face. So now we know the sounds that make up the Uchinaguchi language and the corresponding sound relationships between Japanese and Uchinaguchi. That was probably information overload for everyone, so let's end today's topic of Uchinaguchi sounds. If you have any comments, please chime in. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Until next time, mata yasai.